Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome once again to another episode of Mike's on Mike, brought to you by the Jacksonville History Center, and our thanks, of course, to Dr. Alan Bliss and the fine donors who keep our cameras rolling and the lights on. Today, Mike's on Mike is on location again. All three of us are here at the offices of Gate Petroleum because we're talking with former Mayor John Peyton about the state of city's finances. That includes, by the way, asking the former mayor about municipal finance reform and what he believes is critical to Jacksonville's future. Mayor Peyton was elected in 2003, served 2 terms until 2011. After holding office, he returned to Gate Petroleum as the company's president, and he's also a former chairman of the Jacksonville Chamber. And with that, welcome, Mayor, to the program.
Mike, thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you. So many good friends.
It is. It's been a long, good reunion. It has been.
Right.
Mr. Tolbert, kick it off for us, please.
Be glad to. John, before we talk about what you think should be done for the future of Jacksonville, well, talk to us a little bit about the state of the finances right now in 2025 as you see it, right? The city's finances. And then look down 5 or 10 years down the road and say, if we continue like we're doing right now, where will we be in 5 or 10 years?
Right. Well, let me start, Mike, with just saying, first of all, this is a good news story about Jacksonville. We're in a great place as a city. We are the youngest city in Florida. We've got a great diversified economy. People are moving here. We're a growing community. We've got a great lifestyle, great quality of life. And I think our future is very bright. I think the challenge we have is funding the visions, the bold visions we have for what we think a great city should have. And so as we look at what's happening on the revenue side, we need to be just more attentive because we have some very aggressive plans. We have a $1 billion stadium that I think should be built. I think we're we're all supporting that notion. That has big debt service, $80 million a year in debt service on a stadium like that. We've given sizable raises to our public safety workers. They've probably earned it, but there's a big price tag with that, over about $100 million over several years. That's reoccurring. We need a jail. Our jail is overcrowded. It's in the wrong place. University of Florida looks like it's going to be consuming the convention center. We probably want to think about whether we want to have a convention center. And by the way, the price tag on University of Florida is, I think, $100 million. Matching private sector money and state money. So there's just, the community benefit agreement alone was $150 million, matching that with Shad Khan's $150 million. So these are all projects I think the community rallied behind. We think it's part of a great city, but you can't keep talking about expenses without talking about revenue. And so, as someone who's spent 8 years of my life at City Hall and I'm not an expert on city finances, but I am more than just a casual observer. And I think my experience has been that the community, when given the options of what our options are and what we should do, they usually land in the right place. And that is, look, our city's a great place. It's we got a bright future, and it's worthy of investment.
There's a lot of evidence about what you just said. If you take recent referendums, even back getting rid of tolls and had to increase the tax to do that, there's evidence over and over and over again. If you make the case, better Jacksonville plan.
Right.
If you make the case to the people and tell them why it's needed, you usually win those votes.
Mike, you served as my senior advisor on my campaign, but every other mayor, I think, since consolidation. This community loves their mayor. They like to be led, and it goes back to the Renaissance plan about Austin, the Better Jacksonville plan of John Delaney. Certainly, Missouri got rid of tolls, and with a 0.5-cent sales tax. We proposed Jacksonville Journey. So the community, and we also put in 3 fees and raised millage rate during a financial crisis. So I think it requires a bold vision of fundamentally sound financing and also the dreams that we have for what the city can be. And again, this is a good news story. This is what you refer to, Mike, as a problem of success. We have a lot of great things happening. We need to rise to the occasion. There are 1,000 people a day moving to Florida. About 100 of them are coming to Northeast Florida. We need to make sure our roads are adequately designed and built to accommodate the growth. So our lifestyle and our quality of life is not diminished while we experience success economically in our community.
John, just to pick up on what you're saying, why Jacksonville loves Mayor, before I get into my question, I'm thinking about the time when we all worked together and Mike worked with you. One of the things that our good friend Mr. Tolbert used to say is you can never over-communicate more with the voter. If you tell them what you're doing, they'll follow. But you got to communicate. But
got to communicate, and I think I think we have a mayor who is a good communicator, and I think she has a lot of energy, and she's in the job for the right reasons, and I'm encouraged by that, because you really have to connect with the voters to sell a vision, because a lot of times the things that need to be done are not necessarily politically expedient. They're difficult, but they're the right thing to do.
Yeah, John, while you were mayor, you often said, and we've heard you say that Jacksonville is a bargain. Why is that? And is being a bargain a good thing?
Yeah, right. So if you look at our charts, I travel around town with charts and share these charts. But if you look at almost by any measurement of how we stack up against the cities we compete against, we are a really good deal. Florida is a great state for taxation. We have no state income tax. But then you look at Jacksonville, our millage rate is lower than Tampa or Orlando, the cities that are most comparable to us. Even cities like Charlotte, they are doing more with fees. They're doing more with property tax, doing more with sales tax, and they have taxing districts, and many of them. And listen, I'm not just pro, tax everything, but I think you can be strategic about it. You don't do it drastically. You do it incrementally, and you just try to raise things so you get a better quality of life. The garbage fee is a good example. It costs about $1 a day to get the garbage hauled away from your home. That's not huge money to the taxpayer. But when we combine all those dollars, it's tens of millions of dollars. It's a bondable revenue source, and that could basically fund something bold and visionary that could improve our quality of life. So, recently I was advocating with the council to let's get the garbage fee adjusted to what it costs, so we can free up those dollars to do things that really can change our lives, and with roads and jails and better parks. So I think there's a way to do it, and but you can still be the low cost provider and raise at the same time, because we're so much cheaper than many of the cities we compete with that we can still go up a bit and still be the cheapest. So I don't think, we need to be cheaper by 30% or 40%, just be cheaper by 5% or 10%. Be the low cost provider in your services, but also protect the quality of life. And the beauty of local government is you can see it. You can see where the money's going. You can get in your car and you can drive there and you can see what's being done. Unlike state and federal, you get what you pay for, and there's true accountability. I mean, as mayor, I'd go to the grocery store, I'd hear about it. If someone had a problem, you'd hear about it. Council members can be reached. There's a lot of interaction, and you don't get clouded or fogged by special interest in local government. Special interest really kind of calls the shots, both at state and federal, because they've got a lot of resources to campaign against whatever you're trying to do. So local government is probably the purest form, the most accountable form, and you can see what you're doing. And I think you get what you pay for. And, I had two boys that played soccer, and I was just always amazed when we travel how great the soccer fields were in every other county. And we come back here and we're playing on dirt and there are potholes, and I'm like, you get what you pay for. And I think the folks we have at City Hall and a lot of these departments are really great people. They do the best they can with the resources they have. But when you look at our park spending, and I hope you put up that graph, our park spending is minuscule compared to cities we compete with. And that's not including that we have the largest urban park system in the United States of America. How great would it be to be able to get that number up to where we're taking better care of our parks? We have more programming for kids, particularly at-risk youth in areas where they need activities. There's a huge opportunity to go from the biggest park system to the best park system.
Right.
But it takes dollars to do it. And I've lived by this in this corporate setting at Gate. I live by it at City Hall. If the money's right, if the money's not right, nothing's right. And so there's an opportunity to incrementally make some adjustments to try to get the revenue more on par with, funding our bold visions.
I moved up here from Boca Raton in '93, And I can tell you, one of the first things that my family pointed out to me, especially my son at the time, who was a Little League player, said, "Dad, these parks are terrible compared to Boca."
Right.
I mean, everything there is, of course, there's a lot more money in Boca Raton than there was in Jacksonville, or is in Jacksonville, but they put their priorities there. And even people who complained about the property taxes of Boca Raton realized that they enjoyed the benefits of that higher tax because their children played in the parks and their families were able to the parks.
And Mike, think about all the waterways we have. I mean, improving our river access, so having more parks that are on the water and just that was one thing I was really hoping to accomplish in my second term. We had a few exercises. I think, Mike, you were there. We're brainstorming. Okay, we're in a second term. What do we want to do and what do we want to accomplish? And parks was at the top of the list. Let's go from biggest to best. And then the financial crisis hit, and we went from bold visions to survival, trying to just maintain the level of service we had in an environment where we were declining revenue and increasing pension costs.
This is kind of off topic, but did you ever say during that second term, "I need 4 more years. I got stuff I want to do. Please, I'd love to have 4 more years."
That's a loaded question. No, I never. No, I was counting the days at the.
I recently reread a newspaper article that was written in the Times Union, maybe right before you left office or right after you left office. But it started out talking about how John would make talks in the latter part of his second term, indicating he was ready to get the hell out of it. And some people close to him said, "That's not a really good idea. You gotta be married."
That might have been Mr. Hightower. I think Mr. Hightower said, it's not good for morale. When you're counting down the days,
that was not just that. That was Mr. Tolbert and I. We went, and he said, "Somebody's got to talk to him." I went, "All right, I'll do it."
Let me go back to the garbage fee for just a moment. I'm not sure how many of our viewers or listeners knew this, but John was very active in helping get the garbage fee passed by City Council.
I think the word is courageous.
Pardon me?
Courageous.
And courageous. And he did this in his role at the Civic Council, which endorsed that project. I wondered, what kind of a reception did you get from City Council, particularly from the 7 that didn't vote in favor of this?
Listen, I was thrilled we got the number of votes we got. We got 12. We only needed 10.
Right.
And I think we could have even gotten more if we'd had a little more time. My sense is that most people take office because they want to make their communities better. And that's, and I think we have a really sound argument here, that look, every city in America has a garbage fee. Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, Jacksonville Beach are paying garbage fee. Baldwin is paying garbage fee.
Right.
And we have this fairness problem where you've got people at the beach, 50,000 of them, by the way, that are paying garbage fee and they're paying property taxes that are subsidizing garbage fees in the community here in Jacksonville. Businesses pay garbage fee. A gate store out here is paying $1,000 a month to get the garbage hauled off. So we're all paying for garbage fee. And it's just, this is not a big ask. It's anytime you have a function of government that can be isolated and treated as a business, we should do that. And this is a great example. But this is part of a bigger challenge, right? This is one incremental thing we can do to bring in more revenue and fund the quality of life that we think we should have here, which is for minor incremental adjustments, we can make bold decisions.
The Civic Council not only helped in the support of raising the garbage fee, but they stated that this was part of a larger issue, really, that this is just part of it, and that's a much broader one in talking about the municipal finance reform. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, so I think, when you look at our trajectory, with our growth, with our bold plans, it's not just about the garbage fee, right? We need to talk about millage rate. We need to talk about, do we want indigent care taxing districts? We spend a great deal of our resources for indigent care with University of Florida Shands. Yeah. And how is all that going to work together? But listen, the math is not difficult. That's not what's difficult. What is difficult is finding policyholders, public policy makers, to really go out on a limb and say, look, I think this is the right thing to do because, increasing revenue is not popular. And it's easy for me as a former mayor to sit and advocate for this. But when you're sitting in office and you're facing re-election, you're trying to make sound decisions that protect your office and protect your constituents. No one's volunteering to pay more taxes. So you have to have a robust conversation with the electorate. And I think that's really a role that the chamber can play, that the civic council can play, other organizations in town can say, look, let's have the conversation with the electorate. If the electorate is educated and brought along with the vision, the policymakers are going to follow, and they're going to feel like they're making the right decision, and a decision that folks will have their backs for because it plays to a bolder vision of the community. So I think it's really our job to make the elected officials' jobs easier by giving them support and giving them engagement. When people come to see me about running for office and wanting to be elected, I go through the numbers that I share regularly around the community about, this is where we are. This is what our finances look like. This is where we're spending our money. This is what we want to do. This is the price tag. And just ask them, please don't make a tax pledge. Keep all of our options open. There may be something that comes along that is really game-changing for our community that we want to invest in, but it takes resources. So it's, but listen, I'm sympathetic for those that are in office. They're trying to do the right thing. I think they take office to make Jacksonville better, but they also want to get reelected. So I think there's a cultivation cycle that has to be involved. And I think I'm just really proud of the 12 that stepped up.
Yeah.
I really am. It's not an easy vote. I think it was a shrewd political vote because this is one issue that has the Chamber of Commerce behind it. It has the Civic Council behind it. I think the folks that are paying attention, and many of them are check writers for campaigns, they know who's playing politics and who's trying to do the right thing. And we had 12 very courageous folks that stepped up. And I'm very proud of them.
Follow up on this a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living evidence of this. It takes a little bit of political courage to raise taxes and raise fees. It takes a lot, in fact, especially now. Well, when you were mayor in your second term, you raised the property tax the first time in 20 years, 2 decades. You raised the garbage fee.
Created
the garbage fee.
And stormwater. And franchise fee. That was to get to Mike. You were at the JEA at the time. I think we didn't even get out. I wanted to get more out of you. Yeah. And he did.
My question is, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah. And to make matters worse, I did take a tax pledge. I made a tax pledge back in 2003.
Thought I fault you.
No. I think I'm going to blame that on you. You and Sackett forced that on me.
I'm not.
But okay, it was Sackett. But so this was the deal. We were in a financial crisis. The pension costs had grown from when I was in office. They were like starting around $30 million a year, went up to like $120 million a year. The pension was eating our revenue. Then we had a governor came into office, Charlie Crist, who rolled back our millage rate by expanding homestead exemption. That cost us a lot of money. Then we had a financial crisis where revenue started to plummet. And so we had the perfect storm of a true financial crisis. And so we're sitting around the table saying, okay, this is our revenue. This is what we're going to have to cut. And it was close to $60 million worth of, and then you say, okay, where are you going to cut? Well, you're not going to cut public safety. We were the murder capital at the time. They have huge popular political support, but they're the right people. You don't want to cut that. You don't want to cut your fire and rescue. You don't want to reduce your response times. So that's 60% of your budget. Okay. So you're not going there. Where else are you going to go? You're not going to get debt service. That's, you got to pay your debt. So where do you go? Well, you go to libraries, you go to parks, you go to, the things that really shape our quality of life. And so we sat around the table and said, do we really want to diminish this city by cutting these things, or we're going to stop mowing the medians? We're going to close the libraries and our parks are not going to be maintained. Yeah. Is that what we want? Did we come here to preside over that? And my feeling was, look, I did not come here to diminish Jacksonville. I came here to make it better. And it's going to require some bold decisions. And so we created an entire campaign around it called Fix It Now. That was the campaign. It had a brand. It had a logo. and we hit the streets. And I gave the budget presentation no less than 60 times. But to every community organization that would have me, I would go and make a presentation, including Dodd Redman's barbershop. I went there and got all of his supporters around the chair while he urged. That was real. He urged. He was cutting hair while I was giving my...
He's also just scissors and razor.
That's right. That's right. But so, I went to the council members and said, look, I know this is difficult, but I'm going to own this. I will be responsible for this. I'm going to lead this, and my goal is to give you political cover. I want to go directly to your voters and tell them why we have to do this. And we did that. We communicated directly with the public. We brought the council members along, and we did the impossible. We put in 3 fees, and we raised the millage several times. So we raised close to $100 million in revenue to save what I would say save the city. And I cannot imagine moving forward, had we not done that, how future mayors, because the budgets continue to be tight, how future mayors would have ever balanced the budget or protected or maintained our quality of life as we know it without that revenue. And listen, no one takes office to raise fees and to raise taxes. That's not what you do it for. But in this case, for a city I was born in, I was raised in, I'm raising my own children, I'm running a business here. I did not want to be a part of an administration that makes it lesser. I wanted to be part of an administration that makes it greater. And the only way to get there was to raise revenue.
I think we ought to say amen to that.
Absolutely. But, well, the other part to remember, though, is there was already a commitment that from the Better Jacksonville plan that was also kicking in during that same time. So as you were saying is, I couldn't cut.
My dear friend, John Delaney left me a little surprise in the inbox. We had a number of surprises, but the courthouse was the biggest. And so the courthouse,
it's another example.
It ended up costing almost 3 times what it was budgeted. And that facility was, you design that based on the census. It's not based on, what you think you need. The census basically tells you what you have to have. That was a really expensive endeavor. So we had a lot of challenges. But I was glad I was there when I was there. I think, because I wasn't seeking a long-term political career, I was able to make the tougher decisions. And I'm pretty sure after all the revenue we raised and building a very unpopular courthouse, free election would not have been a given. It probably would not have happened. But you know what? We did what needed to be done, and I think that's the way politics should be done. You go into office, you are burdened with the facts, you make the difficult decisions, and then you get out. And this notion of perpetuating your career through politics is not healthy to the system, and it's certainly not healthy for the community because you avoid those decisions that are not politically expedient.
Mayor, Jacksonville is growing more and more. People are moving here, of course, from around the state as well as around the country. Something that doesn't seem to be tailing off anytime. Let's say that the political will is not there to make those investments. Or you find yourself where the 7 on the city council for the garbage fee becomes 12, and you become part of the minority vote. What's this place going to look like if we don't make those investments?
Listen, we just won't have what we can be. I mean, they'll continue to trim around the edges. They'll find a way. They have to balance the budget.
Right.
They can't use reserves forever. That using reserves for reoccurring expenditures is not good policy. That trick will run out. And it'll be lesser. It'll be lesser.
That, by the way, is we don't know what the future is for federal spending in the cities.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
Well, yeah. No telling what direction that's going to go. So they have to balance the budget. It's not like, Washington, where they don't have to balance the budget. We have to balance the budget, and it'll just, there'll probably be a little bit of less of everything. And I just don't think that allows us to reach our full potential.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back a little bit when we were talking about the other cities, how we compare. As you were going through this, how do we compare, though, to Tampa, Hillsborough County, Orlando, Orange? They have 2 sets of revenue. We only have 1. One of the things I think which the 3 of you, Mike, Talbot were used is 844 square miles.
Right.
Trying to get your head around. How was that a challenge, and then how do we compare to those bigger counties?
Well, first, let me just say, I think we have a huge structural advantage in the way we govern ourselves. I think consolidation from 1968 was probably one of the smartest, best things we've ever did for our region. We are able to have a more efficient government. We can provide services at a lower cost because we don't have the redundancy or conflicts that are so typical between cities and counties. I think we're the envy of most cities and counties in the country, quite frankly, and we should be proud of that bold decision to consolidate in 1968. But, the Civic Council has done a really great job of really trying to create an apples-to-apples comparison because our government is unique in the way we're organized. But taking, the cities and counties of both Orlando and Tampa and saying, okay, let's siphon it down and see how we measure up. And if you look at the charts the Civic Council's produced, which is very, very helpful, I think the benchmarking is really important. You see that we're just woefully underfunded. We're underfunded in public safety, fire and rescue, parks, economic development, indigent care, at-risk youth. Almost everything you break down, our per spending per square mile on transportation is anemic compared to what these other cities are spending. And when you look at those graphs, and I'm in business, and I want to know where I am in the terrain. And I think we should know where our city is in the terrain. How are we doing? We are competing for economic opportunity. We're competing for better lifestyle. We're also competing to deliver services as efficiently as we can. And when you look at these numbers, there's a compelling story that we can do better in providing resources to get the job done for a better park system, a better infrastructure, better traffic, making sure our leaking and failing septic tanks have a long-term remedy, making sure we have a jail that is serving the needs, but also in a better location, making sure we have a convention center. If we want to have one, we should have that conversation as a community. We need a new stadium. Listen, we married the NFL. We're married. It's an expensive marriage. We don't want to get divorced. And so, we're going to have a great stadium. And I think most people are in favor of that.
Yeah.
But there's a price tag. We have to be realistic about that. And again, this is a good news story. These are problems of success. We're blessed to be one of 32 teams in the country with the NFL franchise. We're blessed to live in a part of the country where everyone wants to be. Strong economy, great lifestyle. So let's just make sure we rise to the occasion, and let's not defund our community and sacrifice our potential because we don't have the revenue to meet the bold visions.
John, you've done a marvelous job explaining this. Now it's up to us to put it together so people out there.
Okay.
Want to once again thank Mayor John Peyton for joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much for listening to us as well. Next week, speaking of the Civic Council, their new CEO, Dennis Whittle, is going to be joining us here, and we're going to be talking to him about their future and how they see the city of Jacksonville and how they plan to help in many of the things that Mayor Peyton just talked to us about. Thank you all for joining us. Please join us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you all again next week. Take care.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.